Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am really so excited that I had the opportunity to just learn a little bit about all of you ladies this week and hear about your culture and your families and your goals when it comes to sewing. And we are about to create something magical together. So our introductions ran a little bit long, and so that cut into some of our lesson time for what we had planned. So what I want to do in this video is just to go over the basics of the machine again with you. So I'm going to show you how to load your bobbin with thread, how to thread the machine, how to insert the bobbin into the machine, and we're going to look at our skills assessment. So you have this paper in your booklet. I'm going to take you through how that works and what you should be looking for. And then that way, when we meet on Saturday, you can have a little bit of time to practice, but also come with your questions, get some feedback during our live instruction time. And it's going to be phenomenal. So the very first thing that we're going to do is load thread onto our bobbin. I want you to put your thread spool, your thread onto the holder. You're going to take a little bit of the string and wrap it around this screw. The thread should be going in between this wider base and the top of the screw. You don't want to wrap it around too much. So let's just say one time around, like one full circle, and then pull it over to this little knob right here. I want you to take your bobbin, place it on top of the knob, and you're going to take your string from the middle and go out into the hole. So if it's easier to do that with the bobbin in your hand, then you can do it just like this. And then pull the thread through the top and place the bobbin back on that holder. Holding this little piece in your hand, you can pull it so it's a little bit longer. You want to hold that in your hand for a second and push the entire nozzle. So this whole gray piece and the plastic bobbin, push it over towards this white circle that you'll see here. And then your pedal should be on the floor. You want to give it a light tap. Oh, of course, the machine has to be on. So turn your machine on the back, give it a light tap, and what you're looking for is that the thread is going right around the middle of the nozzle. Okay, perfect. So I'm still holding this little string in the tips of my fingers, and I'm going to lightly tap my pedal. And as you see, the threads are going right around the middle of the bobbin, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to tap it again, and then I'm going to cut this string off right here. This excess string needs to be cut off, otherwise it will cause the bobbin to tangle, the threads to tangle later on when you're sewing. So now that I cut off the excess string and I have my threads going right around the middle of the bobbin, I can just press the pedal as fast as I want to quickly fill up the bobbin. I know that it's completely full and I'm ready to continue when it stops spinning, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So you see how even when I press the pedal, it's not spinning anymore, or it's spinning extremely slowly. That means that it's full. I'll show you again. So now that our bobbin is full, I'm going to cut this thread right here and push this away from the white circle, so the entire metal piece, and you'll hear that nice click sound, so you know it's in the right position and you can pull your bobbin off. Okay, great. Now that the camera's in a better position so that you can see everything I'm doing, the first thing I'm going to do is remove the string from this little nozzle here, this screw. You only use that when you're loading the bobbin. So I'm going to take this off. And the newer machines, you'll see they have the number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. You're going to start right here, and there's a little, I'm going to, okay, so if you can see, there's a little opening at the back, and I want you to take your string and go under, and you'll hear a little pop sound when you do it correctly. So let's do it again. Hold your string here and go under, and you'll hear a little pop sound, so you know that that's in correctly. And while we have it zoomed in, I'm going to show you on 2, there's a little plate. Do you see that? Where I'm taking my finger and separating these 2 plates. So when you wrap it around, you're going to wrap it around here and make sure the string goes in between that little plate. That's going to be important for guiding the string and preventing any knots and issues with your tension. So then we're going to go straight ahead. I'm going to go ahead and reposition my camera again, my machine again, so I can show you the front. Okay, so now that our thread is correctly positioned in step 1 and step 2, we're going to take the string, and we're going down into this little crack right here, and this is where the tension mechanism is. So it's very important that we make sure that our thread goes right into this very well. So we want to hold at the top and the bottom. You're going to sort of floss it a little bit through. You're going to go down into this loop and then pull your threads up, and you should see a little lever coming out of here. If you don't, you simply want to turn your hand wheel, which is this little nozzle right here at the back of your machine. Turn your hand wheel until you see it come up. So let's keep turning it, keep turning it. You see, now it's sticking up out of the machine. So then you're going to simply go around that and down. So our string, we're going to pull it down from that loop, down. I'm going to go around this first little notch, and then if you see right here, it's really small, but I want to kind of zoom in on it a little more. Right here, you can just flick your finger behind it. So we need to get the thread behind that, and the easiest way to do it is to pinch it with your left hand and then use your right hand to swing around. And I'm going to go from the back just so that I'm not blocking it with the camera. And we're just going to pull it straight down. So once the thread is behind this little lever right here, then we're ready to insert it into the eye of the needle. So let me turn my machine. And this can be a little tricky, but what I find it helps make it easier is, number one, you want to make sure you have a nice flat crisp thread. So go ahead and snip it at the end, and I'm going to hold it in my right hand because I'm right-handed. And if I lower the presser foot and put my finger just behind the needle, you see how it's easier to see the hole if I have my finger behind it. And I'm going to insert the thread coming from the front to the back. And just pull it through. And I want it coming into the hole from the front, going to the back. And you see how this is going just straight down the needle. It's not wrapped around or tangled. If you get any tangles, like for example like that, if it's wrapped around, then you just want to take it under and straighten it out.
Whoa!
I'm recording at home today, so you'll hear my little guy in the background. So now that our machine is threaded, then we can load our bobbin and get started sewing. Okay, great. So now that our machine is all threaded, we can focus on how to load the bobbin and checking to make sure that it is in properly. To open this little plastic plate, you want to hold this lever over and it should pop up. If it doesn't, like my machine is a little bit older so it doesn't pop up right away, then you can take just a pin, a sewing pin, and to help like open it up. So I'm just going to hold the black lever to the side and use my sewing pin to open it up. You may want to open your lift your presser foot. That may make a little bit of a difference when trying to get the plastic piece in and out. So here's the important thing. We have our bobbin that's full of thread, and it's very important that the string is hanging down to the left side of the thread. I like to say it makes a P shape, like the letter P. If it's turned this way and the thread is hanging over to the right side, it's not going to flow correctly into the tension for the bobbin. Okay, so I want you to pull the threads down, place your finger on top to hold it in place, and this is from my right hand, and then I'm going to swing it around, and there's this little notch. So let me get closer so you can see that notch really well. So this is the notch right here. Where'd my pen go? There we go. This is the notch right here. If you look down into the machine, you'll see a little yellow that is highlighting where the notch is, but this is it right there. So you want to make sure that the thread is looped under this little notch. That's very, very important, that the thread is looped under this notch. All right, so now we're ready to get started on our assessment test, and I want to just go over it with you and explain what you're looking at. The first part are just straight lines, and the red part represents what we call a back stitch. The back stitch is just overlapping stitches, and it locks your seam in place. You want to do that at the beginning and the end of all your seams. Pretty much no matter what you're sewing, you always want to use this back stitch. That's going to lock it in and make sure that it's secure and it won't come apart when you wash it or when you wear it. In order to do the back stitch, you're going to use this lever right here. Mine says reverse, yours may say back stitch, but what you do is you hold it down and then it makes the stitches go in the opposite direction. So let me show you what that looks like. So you want, before we get started with that, let's go over the dowels really quickly. So you want to make sure, number one, your stitch pattern is on a straight stitch. Number two, your length should be, generally speaking, between a 3 and a 4 is good for beginners. Your width should be set to a 0. Your needle position should be in the center. So if you see there's 3 positions, you want it in the center. Your tension should be between a 4 and a 5. So you want to line your line up with right in the center of the petal. Lower your presser foot and then lightly tap on your paddle, on your paddle that's on the floor to begin sewing. What's important to note here is that you want to, as much as possible, which it may take practice, it may take you to 5 or 7 lines before you get to it a really straight line. But the goal is that you're sewing directly on the line and you're controlling your speed the entire time. So you shouldn't go really fast, and you don't want to like tiptoe. You just want to be able to go at a speed that's even and easy for you to consistently flow at. So I'm going to start sewing. When I get to the end of the red line, I'm going to hold the reverse button down. It's going to take it back to the beginning of the red line. And then I'm just going to keep going all the way until I get to the end of my whole seam. So the end of the next red line. And then hold my reverse. It's going to take me back to the beginning of the red line, and then I'm going to press my pedal again to go back to the end. So I've completed the first line. I'm going to turn my hand wheel so the needle is raised up, lift the presser foot, and just simply pull. In this case we're using paper, but paper or fabric, you want to just pull it away from the machine. You always want to make sure that the threads coming from your machine are long enough just to go over the edge of the sewing machine. So I can snip those off. And we have a nice even seam. You see it's even on the front and the back. And you're just going to continue just like that. So place your line in the center. This time I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little closer. Okay, so I have my line right in the center. I'm going to start sewing. When I get to the end of the red line, I'm going to hold my reverse lever, go back to the beginning, and then I'm going to go all the way down to the end of the red line. Hold my reverse lever again to go back, and then I'm going to end right at the end of the red line. Lift the pedal, make sure the needle is up. And so you see, this is a good example. I'm pulling and it feels tight. I don't want to force it. I'm going to turn my hand wheel until I can pull it loose easily. Until I can pull it easily. Snip off your threads. And once again, the goal is to have just an even, smooth, balanced line. And I'm going to show you an example of what it would look like if my seam was not balanced. So this is a balanced line, and I'm going to show you what it looks like if it's not balanced. And in order to do that, I'm going to take my bobbin out and put it in the wrong way. So let's say, oops, I put my bobbin in wrong, but I didn't know. So I'm just going to start sewing the way I normally would. And I'm still going to line it up, lower my presser foot, start sewing, hit the reverse, go back to the beginning of the red, and then go all the way down to the end, go back, and then all the way down. And same thing, when I'm done, I'm going to pull it off, cut my threads, making sure that I leave at least like 2 inches, 2 or 3 inches, but you can just pull it to the edge of the machine. So on the front, it doesn't look bad, right? But then if we turn it over to the back, ooh, we see how it's crinkling, it's loose, it's not smooth and balanced like this. So this would be a very weak seam. And if this was in a garment, it could easily rip open if you're wearing it, or if you're pulling it, or if you're washing it. It could easily just rip open your seam. So you want to make sure that your bobbin is in correctly, so that your tension is correct and your seam is balanced. I'm going to show you one more example of a bad seam, something that we would have to fix. So before I continue that, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I put my bobbin in correctly. And that means I'm going to make a P, place it down into the holder, hold it with my right hand, and make sure that I'm easing it around that little notch. Put that back here, and so that is now correct. In the back of the machine, we talked about this, but I'll show you just in case anyone forgot. Maybe easier to go around this. So in the back of the machine, there's this little white lever, and this has to be down, in the down position whenever you're sewing. If it's up, what happens is the tension at the top is not engaged. So I'll show you what that looks like when you accidentally forget and you leave this lever in the up position. We're going to do this again, and this time, oops, I accidentally forgot to put my presser foot down. So I'm sewing, but my presser foot is up. I'm going to tap the pedal, and you can hear it doesn't sound the same, right? It sounds really bad. It's so hard for me to do this to my purr machine. But it's okay. Let me show you what that looks like. Pull it off. And once again, on the front, it doesn't look great, but it's not that bad, right? Like, it could be worse on the front. But let's see what it looks like on the back. You see how the threads are just extremely tight and pulling. Okay. You see how the threads are tight and pulling. It's not balanced. It's not even. Let's just take a look at that again. This is a great seam. This is a great seam. This one, the bottom tension, the bobbin was not placed in correctly, so you see that it's not balanced, the tension is not correct. This one, we forgot to put the presser foot down, and sometimes what will happen is a lot of thread will just come shooting through, and sometimes you get this weird looking unbalanced seam. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to look at on our skills attachment test is just the square. Once again, I'm recording at home today, so you'll hear my son in the background, his little toys. Sorry about that. So with the square, you want to start with the bigger ones first and then work your way into the small ones. What we're practicing is pivots. So we want to get a nice straight corner, and I've already did the first one, as you can see. So I'll show you on the middle square. So we want to turn our paper to the side. We're going to start directly in the middle of the red line. Start here, go to the end, back, and then go to our first corner. So I'm going to line up my paper, lower my presser foot, and start sewing. Back stitch, and then when I get to the corner, this is very important, the needle has to be down. So when you stop, if the needle is not down, turn your hand wheel so that the needle is down into the paper or the fabric. Lift your presser foot. Turn your paper all the way so that now this side is lined up with the middle of our petal. Lower your presser foot. Don't forget to do that. That's very important. And then go down to the next corner. Same thing. So this time when I stop, my needle is up. So I'm going to use my hand wheel to lower the needle. Lift my presser foot. Turn my paper. Lower my presser foot. And I'm going to go right to the next corner. So once again, it's up. Lower my needle into the paper. Lift my presser foot. Turn. Lower. And we're ready to sew. Lift, because my needle's already down, so lift my presser foot. And so now I've made it back all the way around to where I first started with my back stitch. So this time I'm going to go a little past where I started and then go back and then come right to the middle to finish. Lift my needle, and then I'm ready to just pull it out. And let's see how we did. Pretty good considering the camera's like right in my my sight. So the very last one is our circle, and this test is designed to help you control your speed as well as practice some of the curved lines that we'll sew in our projects. So I've already done the outer circle, and so I'm going to do the inner circle for this video. But just like with the squares, you want to start with the larger circle first. That's going to be a little easier, and then move to the smaller one in the center. I'm going to line it up so that it's right in the middle. Start off with the back stitch.
Whoa.
So the trick with the circle is that you're constantly spinning, turning the paper as you sew. Unlike the straight lines or the square where you're spending your time just sort of holding it in place and making sure that it stays straight, this time you're actually going to be spinning the paper ever so slightly. Spinning the paper ever so slightly. And it may be helpful to kind of tuck this part as you go. The greater speed control you have, the more it's going to be directly on the line. When you lose control of your speed, you're going to be over here, over there. And so you want to really try to control your speed the whole time. Uh-oh, I got a little off. Great. So now let's take a look at it and see how we did. And so I'm kind of rocking it just so I can pull it out. You always want to get into the habit of cutting off your threads from your project and from your paper, because you don't want those getting into the machine mechanisms and tangling up. So from the front, it doesn't look bad. You can see I lost control just a little bit there. And when we turn it around, yeah, we can see it's pretty consistent all the way around. And I had that one little spot where I kind of lost control and then got back on task. Awesome. So I hope that that was like super helpful for you, and it'll help to alleviate some of the questions or pain points that we'll have next week. But don't feel shy. Looking forward to seeing you again next week, and have a great one.